Hello and welcome to Affinity Talks Gospel podcast, dealing with contemporary issues in the church and in the world from a Christian perspective. This is Graham Nicholls, and alongside me in terms of hosting is...
Have you forgotten my name, Griff? Hi, it's Lizzie
Well,
Harewood.
I was trying to give you a kind of big build-up.
I know you were. I know you. Well, yeah. No, I'm Lizzie Harewood, and we're joined today by Girma. Is it Girma? Is it Bishaw? Bershaw?
Bishaw, yeah, you're
Bishaw.
right. Bishaw, yeah.
Great,
Brilliant.
great.
Yeah.
Girma, it's lovely to have you with us. We're going to get to talking about your book and your kind of ministry, really, to do with gratitude. But just tell us a little bit about Christian experience and a little bit about coming to this country. I know it's a long story, but trying to compress that bit down if you can.
Yeah. So originally from Ethiopia, I grew up in an Ethiopian Orthodox background, so very religious family. In the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, you somehow you leave reading the Bible to the priests. So they are the ones who have kind of traditionally, although they might not encourage that, traditionally you leave the Bible reading to the priests, and you just the fact that you have a Bible in your house is a huge bonus that would drive away evil. But there is a kind of respect and fear of God, that his transcendence is more emphasized than his immanence, his grace. And so we celebrate all Christian festivals like Christmas, Easter, but it is that that application of the gospel, that personal encounter was what was missing. So I grew up in that kind of environment where, as I said, with the fear of God and also a desire to please Him, but I found it very, very kind of difficult. And I think at some point I might given up, even because just because of the burden and kind of the guilt. So that was a kind of environment. And then in my teenage years, I think when I was 17, I met a brother, a Christian, who was actually backslidden at that time in a college, and he invited me for lunch to his home, and he never talked about Christ, he never talked about the gospel, but when I went to his house and interacted with his family, I saw something was different. And on every Saturday lunchtime, they have this Bible study. They used to have this evangelist come into their home and kind of lead a Bible study. That Saturday, I was there, and he took me to his room. He locked me in and put. I remember he put the Bob Marley, the music on, and kind of loudly. He didn't want me to know that he's actually a Christian, evangelical Christian, and the family is. And out of respect for his family, he attended that Bible study. So I, at some point, when the music was kind of the break from one song to another, I heard a song. So I put the volume down, and and then I started to listen. I realized they were singing evangelical songs, and I was kind of surprised. And then I asked him afterwards, and he didn't want to talk about it. And his father invited me the next day, the next week, Saturday, and I insisted that I should be in that Bible study. So despite his resistance, I insisted, and I attended that Bible study and kind of heard the gospel. The evangelist knew that I was new. So he kind of unpacked the gospel, and I really heard the gospel in a new way, really impacted by what Christ has done for us, and how he paid a price for my sin, and he provided not only forgiveness of sins, but actually a power to deliver us from the power of sin. So that was a very transformational moment, and the journey began that afternoon. And by the grace of God, my friend also later on repented, and he came back, and we worshiped the God for a long time together.
That's a wonderful story and
Mm.
encouragement to lots of us to keep on going in witnessing. And how were you then in Ethiopia, or by this time were you in the UK? Because you
No,
came about that age to the UK, didn't you?
so I came, so 2 years after I came to know the Lord. So
Okay.
I was in Ethiopia, and during that time, the Ethiopia was in civil war with Eritrea. Eritrea independent,
Mm,
Eritrea was trying to be independent. So almost 90% of my friends were Eritreans. So really fighting with Eritreans was fighting with my friends' family. And also, that is the problem with civil war. So and also I think the government, the communist regime at the time, was sending young people to war front with, you know, inadequate training and preparation, very, kind of speedy way of passing us to the war front. And we used to see quite a lot of people coming to our local hospitals, amputated and, kinds of things. So there was a fear, and family, all our families wanted us to kind of find a way to leave Ethiopia. So that's what caused my my the cause that was the cause for
mm,
my the reason to leave Ethiopia.
mm.
Mm. And what happened when you got to the UK? What were you doing when you arrived?
So I was very young. That was my first time leaving my family. I had absolutely no idea about Britain, nothing, and I didn't know. I didn't speak English.
Mm.
I read English. We did study in high school, but it's not a language that I spoke about. So it was a very daunting kind of experience for me. So and I came, I mean, the way I came with a tourist visa. That was also funny, and also for me it was a miracle, because at a time when every Ethiopian young people wants to go out of Ethiopia,
Mm.
for British Embassy to give a tourist visa for a young man who doesn't speak the language. He have absolutely no idea about Britain, and also didn't have any money really. I had a $250 in my pocket. So I remember to when I was preparing for the interview, that was the time. At that time, there was no internet or anything to Google what's attractive, what attracts people to tourist attractions in London. So I had to go to the library and study, kind of try to find books and um, information about London. And, so I was prepared to say, I want to see the Big Ben and Madame Tussauds and, the Buckingham Palace and those kind of things. So I came here, and at the airport, obviously they can see that the tourist visa was real. I mean, it's authentic, and they can see that I don't speak English and I don't have a lot of money and I don't know anything about Britain. So they kept me for about 3 hours, and at the end left me. So they asked me to go out. So the fact that I was in the Lord, I think, and that relationship with God gave me that peace, and I was really felt that, like, he got me, that I'm not alone in this journey. And so so the day after, with the people that I met, the Ethiopians I met, they took me to a home office and I asked for asylum. And afterwards, I was told that there were Ethiopian fellowship, Christian fellowship. It was uh, people who came here to study.
Mm.
When the situation back home changes, they remained here in Britain, and they started that fellowship. So I joined that fellowship, and that actually helped a great deal. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I know there's a lot about that story and that experience, but what I'd love to do is to get to your kind of big idea in
Okay.
the mission, and then maybe kind of reconnect it with your experience of coming over here.
Mm.
Kind of we'll go back around on it, as it were,
Yeah.
because I know that you appreciated coming to the UK. So what's the kind of big idea of your book and the ministry that you've started up alongside, all the other things you're doing and being involved in a church and so on. But what's the big idea of this ministry?
So, as you said, kind of it is a long story, but I I was after a few years and after studying, after sensing the call of God to ministry, I responded to that call and studied theology, and I was invited to be the first pastor of the Ethiopian church in London, and I pastored the church for 18 years. Now, just after 10 years of pastoring Ethiopians, we are speaking in our own languages, we eat our food, we associate with our own people, we have our own Ethiopia within London. So that was a comfortable kind of place to be. But the question of, we are living in a very cosmopolitan city with people from all over the world here, and also the fact that the second generation is coming up and their mission field is different from our own. And also the question of what is my responsibility for the host nation. It really created a lot of questions in my mind. And as I reflect on that, I mean, earlier on, I was really grateful for the fact that I was received and also given a place to live and a money to live by, an opportunity to work and to study and to be a contributor in the society. So that privilege, I think, that generosity have been I hugely appreciated that.
Mm.
So that was that kind of really appreciating. I mean, I became very observant of the good that I see in this country. And as pastoring immigrant church, when you testify or write a letter for someone, a member of your church who's an asylum seeker, you have to back it up by going to court. So I used to go to court quite a lot, and sitting at the back and just observing how this man or woman who couldn't live in his own country at the time. Ethiopia, as I said, Ethiopia was in that kind of situation. And that now there is this judge there and there's a solicitor and trying to, you know, a lot of money is invested in that and trying to make sure that if that person is returned back home, no harm would find him. And I was just sitting there and this man, it's like this is kind of treating the person as a human being and really with dignity. And with that, I really deeply appreciated those kinds of how Christian values, the fathers, kind of really worked and prayed and hard to instigate that Christian value in British institutions, and how that really help us really to feel that we are treated as human beings. And I think those kinds of appreciation, that really increased my appreciation of what it means to be in Britain. So as I was kind of in, it's a lot of, I mean, it's maybe around 4 years of wrestling with those ideas. I felt that my heart was outside of the church building than that was inside, and I just couldn't continue to pastor Ethiopians, but I wanted to work with other ethnicities to help them to be more missional, to consider that this is actually this is our country. This is really to what helped me was to discover my transnational identity in Christ.
Mm.
Have
Mm.
given me transnational responsibility. So that the fact that I am as responsible for the mission of God in this country as any Brits. And that means to have his heart for this nation. And because you can't share the gospel to the people that you don't love, you can't pray earnestly to the country that you don't care about. So the fact that to be present for God where I am, to have his heart for this nation and really to see his kingdom come and his will be done on earth became a passion to me. And that as I stepped down, I started to notice a lot of things that really I struggled with. Kind of how our unity sometimes in a diverse kind of leadership context is very shallow. There are elephants in the room, that there are issues that we don't want to talk about because we don't know how to talk with. There's no framework that helps us engage in a constructive manner. And also how I saw how, we are very much, kind of negative oriented, that our public arena was very much focused on the problems and the negative. The small minority's voice is dominating that public arena and really shaping how we see one another. And I found how cross-cultural mission became a problem because of the division and animosity and all kinds of negative things that we think about each other. So the question of, okay, what can we do? What is the way forward? And as I pray and contemplate, and obviously that the heart of gratitude and appreciation helped me to discover the whole concept of gratitude. I saw gratitude not as this passive response to the good that we receive, but actually theologically and biblically, it's an active posture of acknowledging the good. The good needs to be acknowledged first before we engage with the bad. The good came first, not evil. So if the good came first, and if the good God created the world and that his goodness is intrinsic to nature, then the good needs to have a primacy in the way we see the world, in the way we see others. So I saw gratitude as hermeneutic principle to interpret the world and to see the world in the goodness of God. So to really to start from there. So that's kind of the
Yeah, no, it's a big idea. Lizzie, did you want to interrogate that a little bit?
Yeah, I suppose I've got so many questions for you. I probably should write them down. I suppose there's a couple of things. I suppose without wanting to have that negative kind of posture, you obviously saw that there was something that was missing, perhaps in the attitudes of people in the UK for this very venture to start. And yet it was being in this country and perhaps this culture that led you to that sense of overwhelming gratitude. And I just think that's quite an interesting kind of reality to be in, because I suppose I would also say, and this is only when you take a step back, that we are very quick in our nation, and this could be across many different cultures, but I know particularly from a kind of, from someone who's always lived here, there's a tendency to be sort of stoically grumbling all the time about everything and not necessarily realizing the many blessings that we have in our nation, or perhaps taking them for granted. I just wonder, could you reflect a little bit on, you talked about how you saw the kind of the Christian values running through our institutions. And I don't want this to become a sort of, patting ourselves as a nation on the back, but what do you mean by that? And how did that kind of act as a contrast to what you'd been used to?
So, one of the benefits of coming from outside is that you can be able to see things from, kind of from a different angle. When you are inside, you can take things for granted, not necessarily undermine it or, undervalued, but actually it doesn't really come to mind quickly, and they
Yeah.
don't really see it. You see the problems, the negatives, and the changes. And I think so that helped me a lot because I came from outside and I just started to see things really, as I said to you, the institutional values that we have here and kind of the British values that we, whether it is tolerance, whether it is law-abiding citizenship, whether it is equal right, whether it is, kind of a generosity, the fact that I didn't contribute anything to this country in a way. As far as I know, my family, my parents, no one contributed. And I was received and treated as a human being and was provided all that. So, and I think the other thing was I have one of the things I really appreciated was kind of the dynamics. Now, maybe because we talk about a lot about migration, we might find it even difficult to recognize. But I think one of the things I really appreciated in this country was the relational dynamics between the host nation and the international community in this country, the migrant community. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because I have been to many countries in Europe and other nations, and I have had a conversation with the migrants, Ethiopian migrants and others. And what I saw, the dynamics between those migrants and the host nation, what we have here is absolutely amazing, and with huge potential to be exemplary, to be really, a very powerful. It could even be by far, kind of even be better. Now, so I came back, and after reflecting all that, and I came back here and really thinking, how did it come? How this came about? And obviously, I think the Christian kind of values of Britain in terms of, as I said, in the past, the Christian fathers who have or mothers who have really prayed and kind of really worked on that whether it is the Magna Carta, all the whole the freedom of the individual, all the Christian kind of foundational work that has been implanted in this country, it played a huge role. And also, I think maybe Britain's exposure to the global culture at some point, Britain have been, rolling the world at some point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that exposure brought some kind of cultural maturity. But also, I think the first migrants who came to this country, the Caribbeans and some of the Asian community who came in the 50s and the 60s and have had really tough time in Britain, but their struggle contributed to the betterment of Britain. So the Britain I come to know is not the Britain they came to know that at that time. So that I think all those contributed, and that kind of the willingness, the very pragmatic culture that once we our response to logic and reason, like when we are in this country, I think when when logically explained, when we are really challenged in a reasonable way, there is that pragmatic approach to embrace reason and to change. So that contributed, and I think with all that, I started to see the beauty that we have in this country, and I think that's why, for me, at this moment, starting the conversation about migration from the boat is problematic for me. So yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it's
Yeah, no,
wonderful.
yeah, no, it's really interesting. There are quite a few threads to pull, so it's just deciding which thread to pull next. Just for a moment, just rooting it back theologically, I think from chatting with you before and just reflecting on what you're saying now, that in the Bible, in Scripture, there is an encouragement to be grateful for salvation, and there's an encouragement to be grateful for all the benefits God gives us in life. So I think both those threads run through. And having had a chat with you in preparation for this, I suddenly started noticing more,
Mhm.
you know, and that the idea of having gratitude in your hearts when God's people are singing together, and of course that is gratitude for salvation, but I think the prayer for the daily bread is also reflected in the thanksgiving for our daily bread. So I got all that idea. Just tell me how gratitude helps that posture of um, or having a posture of gratitude, sorry, helped you with dealing with sometimes immigrants, sometimes perhaps white British people who were kind of skeptical or cautious about each other. How does that for you play out, that posture? What does that look like when you're trying to either evangelize or just encourage fellowship?
I think that's a very good question because the difficulties, the difficulties when we are talking about a familiar word
Mm,
is that people think that we are saying what they are thinking.
Yeah.
And I think so gratitude has been seen as this, like this softness. This is this like a blindness to the bad and the injustice that's happening. It's just this politeness, that's to say thank you for kindness. I mean, we say you can't teach British public what to say thank you, really, because that's our default positions. I mean, in a way, like I don't know how many times in a day do you say thank you, but
yeah.
Mm.
so that's when we talk about gratitude. That's not what really I'm referring to. I think theologically, gratitude is not a sporadic episode. It's actually a posture in life. It's a stance in life. It is, for me, the pre-fall posture, the pre-fall emotion that enabled human beings to enjoy the giver as well as the gift. That is it's a posture. It's not that it's a prime. It's a theological decision to start by acknowledging the good. So the
Mhm.
good needs to be acknowledged first because the good came first. The good is primacy. The goodness of God is in creation, and it is our if we start from the good, that we can be able to be above the spell of evil that is thrown at us. So I think that's why the definition is very, very important. Gratitude for me is an acknowledgement of the good, because the good has a primacy over evil. So when I acknowledge the good first, I transcend the evil that is thrown at me. And then I can be able to engage with evil from a place of freedom without being free from its spell. That is when I can be able to overcome evil with good, because good has more power than evil. So
Mm.
acknowledging the good, I mean, like throughout the Bible, we see that the goodness of God is not eliminated by the fall. It was the fall, the sin, evil tried to distort the good. So that's why in Isaiah we see that Isaiah crying out the glory of God is the words, the whole earth is full of the glory of God, and that in Romans Paul was saying, challenging the fact that while the power and the goodness, the glory of God is known, we were not willing to give due glory and thanksgiving to him. And that lack of ingratitude led humanity to all kinds of things. So we see how the apostle, Jesus starts from his observation is kind of the good. Like, for example, just to give an example, like how he interacted with Zacchaeus, for example. Zacchaeus was ostracized by his people, or was seen as this oppressor, and kind of collaborating with the oppressors. And, despite all that criticism, Zacchaeus was able to live and kind of practice and justify his actions and live that way for many, many years. Now, this time Jesus came and he said to him, the Son of Man was to be at your house, and he obviously he knows who Jesus was. I mean, he knows that Jesus knows about him, and Jesus knows that who Zacchaeus was. But Jesus's focus was the fact that Zacchaeus was a human being, and also that he's the son of Abraham. And Jesus, being Jesus, he might have seen some kind of desire to change. So he went in, and obviously Zacchaeus would expect Jesus to kind of talk about, why are you doing this? Why don't you stop, and kind of challenge him? He didn't say anything. Jesus was just his focus was that. So somehow it created this environment of grace where Zacchaeus encountered his own sin for the first time. That grace, so gratitude, that acknowledging the good, starting with the good, that creates a space of grace for people to encounter their own sin. They don't need to fight. That helps people, not to be in their survival mode, to fight or flight, try to defend or something. So it gives them that space where there is no, it's that space of psychological kind of free space, and that is where a encounter happens. So when I acknowledge the good, things change. People, when you start by acknowledging the good, things change. So just to give you an example, two examples of my own journey. No, I remember in my ministry time, there was a minister that I was worked with for a very long time. She was a very good friend, and we have been, ministering many, many years, and family friends like that. But somehow she misunderstood something, and she humiliated me publicly. I mean, she contradicted me publicly in a very big way, in a way that I could be misunderstood by the observing congregation. And I was furious, and she was not I was not accountable to her or anything. There was a board that we both are accountable, and if there was any problem, she could have talked to me, and also she could have to talk to the board if there is any problem. But that action was absolutely wrong, and I was furious, and obviously I wanted to respond negatively, kind of that way, but to defend myself. But they gave us. The board was really unhappy about what happened, so they wanted to have a meeting with us. So they gave us 3 days or 4 days to meet them within the next 4 days. So within that 3 days, initially I was so angry, and I was just asked, how dare she, and that kind of thing. And then I started to think about. I just zoomed out, and I zoomed out, and I just started to think about, how we met, and what she had been to me, and how her prayers, and kind of how at some of the difficult times that she was there with me, and how, just all the goodness that I have seen in her life started to unfold before me. Before that, the problem she caused was in my face and covering everything. So when I started to think that, then my emotion starts to change. My anger starts to change. And I just said, okay, this event is really deleting all the good that I've been. And I saw how that is not right. So I decided to start from talking about what she meant to me, and how, she had been a blessing to my life. So when we went to the meeting, obviously, it was very tense. The board was expecting a fierce kind of encounter, and she was really ready to to defend herself. So when they asked us to, one of us to start, what we saw that time, this meeting was really wrong, and I just want us to just tell us what happened. So I started talking about how we met, and how she had been a blessing to me and everything. And I'm not trying to flatter her. It was a real story. Things started the room changed totally. The way they sit changed. The way and then eventually I have absolutely no idea why she did that. And I just want you to tell me why. And then she started, because she misunderstood something. She was angry, and she said that, and I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have said that. And the whole thing was, now she was disciplined, but our friendship continued until this day. So
Mm.
the things
Mm.
could have been gone another way. If I have a right. She was wrong, the wrong. I could have fought that, and then she would be disciplined, and then our friendship would have been over. So
Mm.
that kind of that how we can actually acknowledge the good is it's not a weak thing. It's not a defeat. It's actually results
Yeah.
a more preferable answer. Another example, just short one to give you. I made this couple. It's actually in the book. I met this very posh English couple in Central in the West End, and they were waiting for a pickup. Really posh, I can see, and I was just waiting for a friend of mine, and there were two people, passers, and they were talking about, I think at the time, some kind of political conversation, and they made us laugh. And the lady started to talk, and she said to me, I'm really I'm really I really ashamed of my country, Britain. That look at immigration, look at Brexit, look at hate crime, look at racism, look at this. She just kind of narrated all kinds of the problems. She listed the problems, and obviously, as an African, she expected me to agree with her and maybe add some more of the problems. So I said to her, I'm sorry, madam, I don't agree with you. And she said, what do you mean you don't agree with me? I said, because Britain is not just that. There are qualities in this country that we sometimes take it for granted. And I listed some of the things I was contemplating at the time. And then she came over and she said, I'm sorry for asking, where are you from? How can you say this about Britain? I said to her, I came from Ethiopia as a young man when Ethiopia was in civil war with $250 in my pocket, knowing no one. And I was received. I was given a place to live, a money to live by, opportunity to work, to study, and to be a contributor. So I am what I am today by the grace of God and by the generosity of the British people.
Mm.
So when I talk about Britain, I cannot start from the negative. So she started crying. She said to
Oh,
me,
wow.
no, 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 no. Where you gave me hope for my own country. And she said, where would Britain be without the migrant community? Look at NHS, look at this, look at that. I said, no, 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 we are the one who are grateful. She said, no, no, we are the one. We just keep on reciprocating gratitude. And the atmosphere that was created is so beautiful
Mm.
that she didn't want to go. And her husband was standing there looking at his wife, falling in love with this African man. But if we had time to talk, and if there was any negative experience that I had in Britain, she could have listened to me,
Mm.
and we would have, healing could have taken place, and reconciliation would take place. So gratitude creates this environment where new beginning is possible,
Mm.
where there's that, like reconciliation is possible, where we can actually listen to one another. So it's a very powerful
Mm.
posture.
I think I was listening this morning, I mean, entirely different context, but I was listening to an interview with the most wonderful woman, Corrie Ten Boom. It was probably in the 70s or 80s. And she was talking about gratitude. And she said that she and her sister were grateful for being infested with fleas and mites because it meant that the wardens who were obviously in charge of Ravensbrück, where they wouldn't want to come in to the rooms where they were all sleeping and staying, which
Yeah.
meant that they could have Bible studies because they managed to smuggle in a Bible, and Bibles were outlawed in the camps. And she said, and twice a day we would have Bible time where we would read the Bible and talk about Jesus. And she said, and many souls came to know the Lord Jesus. And she said,
Wow.
and I give thanks for the infestation. It was
Yeah.
horrible, but I am
Yeah.
so thankful. And my heart just, gosh, my heart fell because I think my posture is the entirely opposite kind of direction. And I think it's very hard. I wonder, I know many people, and indeed possibly like this myself, perhaps my heart is hard and I find it very difficult to be grateful and to have that kind of attitude that she adopted and that you're clearly encouraging. How can we try and encourage people to work through a sense of bitterness and ungratefulness when it's so unnatural? particularly for Christians?
Yeah. So I think experiencing unmerited grace, unmerited generosity, unmerited, kind of kindness really helps us to
Mhm.
triggers gratitude within us. I mean, there's nothing as the gospel that actually could erupt that heart of gratitude in us. The
Mm.
fact that, that God, we are so precious that He have given everything. He given up in His life to save us, and to recognize the, that love. I think that grace is fundamentally a very profound incentive, and kind of that motivates us to create a heart of gratitude within us. And I think that's I think that is the first thing. And as you said, our society, I mean, morning to evening, we are bombarded with negativity, negative news. If there is no negative, wrong happening or some kind of bad thing
Mm.
happening, there's no news. So, that actually affects us in a big way. And I remember, I can't, it's not something that it's a proven fact as far as I know. But there was a university in America, in Arizona. The neurology department studied that, in the day, our thoughts, 70% of our thoughts are negative,
Mm.
about ourselves, about others. And you can imagine the psychological, the social implication of that negativity within our society. So I think it takes, it's just taking a practice. As I said, the gospel, experiencing that, reflecting that love is refreshing and applying that love to our heart is, as Christians, is, I think, the main source of gratitude for me. And also really benefiting from the experience of gratitude. Like, even in our children, when the children comes home angry or sad, we ask them what happened.
Mm.
What's wrong with you? But when they come happy, we don't ask them
Mm.
what caused that happiness, so that they may not refer, oh, because somebody have given them something, or somebody said something good, or something good happened. So that kind of reflection is, I think, and addressing that source and counting that and acknowledging that is a huge help to encourage, even from our childhood, to grow in a attitude of gratitude, pausing, pausing to reflect on the cause of that good things that's coming. So I think for me, it's practicing, like sometimes even, discipline, like, whether it is in the evenings, thinking about, okay, in my workplace, there was a difficult situation, and my acknowledgement of the good first, not to flatter, but actually taking time to reflect the good before I engage with, address the bad that is happening. How did it help that conversation? How did it help me? How did it help the other person? How did it help the team? That kind of reflection would really help us to keep on practicing that, and see that it actually benefits us. It brings, it creates an environment of flourishing from within from our system, our human beings, as human beings. No other emotion other than obviously love that actually is a benefit to our system. Any other emotion is, causes all kinds of problem within us. So it's really taking one day at a time and reflecting and learning that it actually is a benefit to us and others, that could encourage that gratitude attitude within us. and having conversation with other people. I mean, you know what happened today. Sharing the good that happened, and also the result of that exercise.
Well, what's interesting is Jesus and Paul, when writing to the churches, so the seven churches in Ephesus and Paul in most of his letters, he often has some quite difficult things to say, but he almost invariably gives thanks for them at the
Mm.
beginning of those letters.
Yeah.
Now he's not using it as a technique. I think, as you have been saying, Goma, it's a posture that he has that, yes, they may be encouraging heresy or not loving each other or whatever it is, but he will begin by saying, "I'm so thankful for God's work in your hearts. I'm thankful for the love you had. I'm thankful for the way you received me."
Mm.
And Jesus does the same to the seven churches, even though he has some pretty tough things to say. So it's very much a biblical model.
Yeah.
Mm.
I want to just shift gears a little bit for we've probably got 4 or 5 minutes remaining. Um, Avoiding the kind of the detailed policy decision issues, what would you love Christians to be saying about immigration and integration? So I don't really want to get in because Christians listening to this might have different views about precisely what the policy should be kind of out there. But in terms of our dialogue, what would you love Christians, what would you love to hear? Or perhaps you're already hearing it, but what would you love to hear of when people talk about immigration and integration?
So I think I think I raised a little bit about where the starting point should be.
Mm,
When we talk about migration, starting from the boat is a problem because when you start to talk about the boat, the kind of the influx of migration, immigrants from France, you tend to, when you read that, you would be seen as anti-immigrant, and also, people might not want to raise those things because they will be labeled as anti-immigrant. So you find these people who have kind of frustrated and raise those issues. Some of them hide it behind. I think the best place to start for me is to to celebrate the many years, hundreds of years of Britain's hospitality to the migrant community in this country, and kind of that, and also the contribution of those migrant communities to the betterment of Britain in many ways. So if we start by celebrating, acknowledging those things, then when we raise the difficulties that we're facing today, it will become objective. We are not raising those wouldn't make us anti-immigrants or otherwise. So I think that is what there is a tendency to consider celebration as weak, but celebration is actually, celebration is a very powerful thing. In the Bible, God gives to his people celebration after every revelation, after a significant historical event. He asks them to celebrate because in celebration, you are internalizing what you value most, what you are celebrating, you are communicating. Celebration is communicating. You are communicating what you value most, what make us who we are. And also it's also preventative, like you actually prevent those things which doesn't agree with what you value most. So starting the conversation of immigration should start, as I said, starting from the celebration of the past. That I think helpful to do it. And also I think we need to create a space where we can, people will be free to start, because, I always say that you cannot expect hospitality to grow while you are ignoring the concern of the host. No matter how right or wrong the concern of the host is, the host needs to have a safe environment where its concern is heard. So I think as churches, we need to create a space in our churches where people could, share, no matter how bizarre their idea is, their frustration is. I think if we don't do that, then we are consuming all ideas from somewhere else, and the way we think about things might not be the right way. So creating that space and having a free conversation and listening to people is very, very important. And when we talk about as a nation kind of protests, when we talk about migration, that celebration aspect of celebrating the best that we have in this country, celebrating the values that we have in this country, is not only creates an environment and that we are when we we invite people to be integrated, they know what we are they are invited to integrate to, because we are celebrating, we are highlighting, we are communicating what we value, what Britain is all about, what Britain values most, what we are. So in the absence of that clarity, in the absence of that celebration, in the absence of that vocal articulation of what we are, people we don't know what to integrate to. Just because I speak English, by coming here and speak English, doesn't mean I'm integrated. That values that cultural norms that people are invited to integrate needs to be clearly celebrated as a nation.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, just to finish, when we think about Britain's multicultural political ideology, it came about from kind of Britain's generosity in a way, because realizing that cultural expression matters for human flourishing, so individuals flourishing. So people were given freedom to exercise and to be themselves, to be their culture within Britain. But in the absence of umbrella culture, where there's unity that brings us together, diversity becomes a huge problem, because even in the church, diversity is meaningful because we have something that unites us, which is Christ. Mm-hmm. But in the nation, if we don't highlight those cultures, if you don't have this uniting kind of cultural norm that we celebrate, that we are invited to celebrate, then where are we asking people to integrate to?
Sure.
It's absolutely brilliant. I love that. Really interesting. It's a bit like in the church. You can't celebrate diversity as a value in itself. You can only celebrate diversity if there is unity. And in the case of the church in Christ, I love the way you articulated in terms of the nation state as well, that you can't just celebrate diversity. It's diversity under the umbrella of the host. Do you know what, Lizzie? I'm going to give you the privilege of the last question. So think of one.
Oh goodness, I'm normally very good at coming up with something that's quite, sensitive. Well, maybe where can we learn more about thankfulness, about gratitude? Where can we find your book? I don't know if that's what you're meaning, Graham, but there you go.
That'd be good. That's a good question.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. IVP is the one who published it, and you can find it on IVP.
Give us the title.
It's The Gratitude Way. It's creating a common ground in a divided world. So I think there is a sociological, theological. I've interviewed Miroslav Volf. I have just a few pages of Miroslav Volf. There's a psychologist who I interviewed, and also two other Christian practitioners that I interviewed included in that book. And I think it gives the overall picture of what I'm talking about.
Wonderful. We've really enjoyed chatting with you.
And
so thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure.
We are very grateful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to Affinity Talks Gospel Podcast. Affinity is a network of evangelical churches and Christian organizations working together, sharing stories in order to encourage and equip God's people to preach and live the gospel in this generation. If you're interested in supporting this ministry, we'd love you to join us. Just head over to affinity.org.uk/join to find out more. And we look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Affinity Talks Gospel.